Hilary,
Yeah.
welcome back to the Spirit Farm podcast.
Thank you.
Always good to have you. I would like to have you on more routinely. We've talked about getting you to do even like the intros and the outros with me so we could have a little banter.
Mm-hmm.
Just to this point, you haven't agreed to do that
That is
yet?
not true. That is not true at all.
You know-
I would totally agree to do it. You just have you just get your stuff moving and going and shaking, and I'm slow poking behind you.
Well, and we have 3 kids, and
Yeah.
you have a thriving beauty counter business.
True.
And incorporating Pilates into it
Starting
now.
Pilates again. Yep.
So there's a lot going on. But all that to say,
Yes.
more Hilary is a win for everybody.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, thanks. Before we get into kind of the topic of today, let's just talk for a moment about how November 1st, our house exploded with Christmas.
Actually, I think a little bit before, technically, because this year we made the decision that the Christmas lights on the outside were not getting done. And when they were getting done, they were a little bit sub maybe my standards and probably yours as well.
It's not my forte.
It's not your forte.
Hanging things on roofs. Plus, this, in fairness, like this house, the way it's made, it's difficult to like string lights. Okay. It just wasn't happening.
I feel like, it's just you don't like to do it. At our old house, it cracked me up when you did do it. There was
droopy.
Oh my gosh, droopy. And then you'd find a nail that was already there and you were like, perfect. Wrap it around that. And just keep going. It looked awful. And it was so sweet. And I was so grateful because I could care less, really. I just want all the lights, want to go big. So I was grateful you did it. But this year we decided as let's keep our marriage super happy. Let's get some lights installed. And it's brilliant because they store them so you don't have to keep them in your garage. They come, put them up, take them down.
They put them up. They do a far superior job than I would.
Oh, not even in the same category.
Fast.
Yeah.
And then when we're done, we haven't proven this out yet, but in theory, when we're done, they'll take them away.
Yeah. Well, hopefully maybe they won't. They did put them up October 13th, and I thought I wouldn't turn them on until November 1st, but I just was like, you know what? 2020. Why not? Let's light it up.
We could all use a little bit more light and bright and festiveness.
And we decided that this will be your gift to me. Our anniversary is November 22nd.
Yeah.
Every year, this will be my anniversary gift.
This will be the anniversary gift.
Yeah. And you guys will know how much my husband loves me based on how many lights are on outside.
Oh my gosh.
That's how I trick you into more Christmas. But yeah, interior, I waited till November 1st and then I went for it. And this is probably my most creative year yet.
It is. It looks beautiful. You've done a great job.
Yeah.
I like how you incorporate basic things, even some art stuff that you've done with the kids, and you somehow hang that and make that look pretty and cool. And you've done a fabulous job. What about the people that they don't understand people like you? They're just like, November 1st is way too early. You don't do Christmas until after Thanksgiving. They find it obnoxious. Give them a little glimpse into your childlike Christmas heart.
Okay, well, number one, the U.S. is the only place that waits until after Thanksgiving. We're the only people that celebrate Thanksgiving. Everybody else in the whole world is already doing this. So I'm just on trend with the rest of the world. Number one.
Fair.
Number two, I love Christmas so much that I start getting sad on Christmas Eve that the day is going to be tomorrow and it's going to go too quick and I'm going to be sad. I sometimes start putting it away on Christmas Day.
Yeah, you do.
Because I start getting sad. And 26th, it's done.
Yeah, it's very latest, 26th, it's packed up.
Here.
It's out of here.
Because it's too emotional for me to look at it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to look at you. So I just put it away. So that's the reason I do it early. I'm putting that in quotations for you guys listening on the podcast. I just think I'm doing it on time. I'm being gracious enough to wait till after Halloween. So for at least most of it.
What do you look forward to most about Christmas time?
Oh, baking for sure. I love baking. That was like with my mom, my mom passed away.
Your mom passed away when you were
27? 20, I just turned 27, yeah.
Yeah.
And so my childhood growing up, I mean, it was simple. There was we always had these special Christmas plates, and we would have baking days, and my mom would give gifts. Her gifts were cookies, and I just remember baking. You've been there. You were there for one of our Christmas cookie days. And I mean 10 batches, and then we would make plates and give them. And so it's not necessarily even, I mean, they were really good cookies, but it was more or less the time in the kitchen with the Christmas music and all the decor and the smells and the cocoa. It's just the best.
There's a joyfulness, a childlikeness, a mood that's in the house. The Christmas music is playing. There's kind of baking, wafting.
Yeah.
It's fun. And you do a great job of making it fun and bringing fun. And that's one of the things that everybody who knows Hilary loves about Hilary is you are a joy maker.
Oh, thank you.
You make things fun. You make every environment that you're in better. You kind of elevate the mood and whatever. Elevate the conversation. You just have so much spark in you, passion for life, such a great sense of humor. What I wanted to talk about today was how that person, that childlike, joyful, spontaneous, with that little girl heart, also at the same time, you have such deep convictions around grief and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's a funny little juxtaposition that I think one of my most prevalent traits or obvious traits is my joy. I think God made me very joyful. And it's not like a show. I just am really happy most of the time, or bubbly kind of, but I think I kind of with that live a little bit out loud, and sometimes that can be challenging for some people. And I really had to fight with fight for protection around my grieving process after I lost my mom. And I am gregarious, I am outgoing, and I realized pretty quickly that that made a lot of people uncomfortable. And so
when you're talking about when you're grieving, because you also you do everything out loud, right? So you do the joy, you do the fun, you do the energy, you do that out loud, and everyone benefits.
Yep.
But then when you're going through something hard,
then they're really not. They're Debbie Downer. I turn into that girl on SNL who's whoa, whoa. Yeah, totally. So I bring that.
It's because it's who you are.
Yeah.
It's you bring it out. You wear it on your sleeve. What you see is what you get. There's no fake. There's no pretense. And that's what everyone loves about you. And 80% of the time, it's joy and passion and fun.
Yeah.
But there's that 20% of it's real life. You go through crap and loss and difficulty. And what you're saying, and I love it, I don't think I've heard you articulate it that way before, is that you do this out loud. Well, you're also going to do this out loud. You're also going to do the pain out loud. You're also going to do the grief out loud. You're also going to do the processing out loud.
Well, I think I realized early on, and you remember our first year married, I mean, my mom had just passed, and I think I cried some not normal tears. I can remember back, I can almost hear the tone of my voice, and it was something I'd never heard in my 27 years of life.
Yeah, it was deep grieving. There was a wailing even.
And I, I think I just was in survival. I didn't know, but I wasn't gonna fit to anybody else's standards. I just knew this is what was coming out of my body, and I was gonna let it exist. And the more that I've walked through other painful scenarios and other painful situations where I realized, oh, this is grief. This feels familiar. It's important, at least for me and how I process grief, is to let those emotions have motion, let them exist inside of me and let them move through me. And oftentimes I find it really healing in those seasons. I tend to be active more. I tend to want to go hike or go walk or go for a run. And that motion helps me process my emotion.
Okay, that's brilliant. We got to just park there for a minute. So our emotions need to have motion to them, right? So we're feeling something. We're feeling those things. What happens, my default, and probably one of the reasons that we go together well and are attracted to each other is because we're different. And my default has been historically to not want to deal with the emotion, or I deal with it by thinking my way through it and past it. But there's a process, and the process means action. And there's like it has to be allowed to move through our bodies or it gets stuck.
Right. I think you do move through it. I think you move through grief or trauma through creativity. Okay. I think that is part of the way that you process grief. All of us process differently. And there's no way around it, but we tend, as a society, as a culture, I think we want to put a bow on the end of the grieving process. Like, oh, that's done. Now we're moving on. And now we're on to this. And to that, I say, no, like, absolutely not. I'm going to miss my mom until the day that I die. I'm going to grieve her. I probably won't ever go back to the depth of pain I felt that first year, but I will still grieve her when I am on my deathbed, because I miss her. I'm going to miss her for as long as she's not with me. I'm going to miss her. Yeah. And likewise with other events in our lives, there is no need to put a timeline on our grief. It's important to just let it be. When we try and rush through it or move beyond it, sometimes it can actually stunt our grief, I believe. I think it can put you back. When you pretend like it's not there, then you're just trapping an emotion that's just trying to move. It's just trying to find its way through your body.
Now, that's great and so important. And I want to get to those. You've already mentioned two really brilliant things on how you help it move through your body. I heard you say exercise and I heard you say creativity. Well, let's get to that in a second. When we don't let it move through our body, what I was kind of poking at is someone helped me kind of realize this a bit ago, that when we depress our emotions, we get depressed. And the only way to not be depressed in that kind of a way, yes, there's a chemical imbalance and there's a place for chemistry, but I'm talking about when you're not acknowledging your emotions, you're depressing them, and you will feel depressed. To release that, we need to express, and that's part of letting it move through us. You've helped me with that, but I've seen that as a struggle for me and other people. They depress instead of express. Right. And expressing, it's like you said, some people maybe aren't as comfortable with it, but it's a part of the healing process.
It is. And I think often we look at grief, I think there's an association with grief with death, but specifically like a death of a human is kind of like where people put it, or like an animal, like there has to be a complete death. But really, grief is an emotion that we experience, or many emotions inside of grief, in lots of different ways. So we experience it with a job loss, divorce, what you thought your life would look like, death of an illusion. There's lots of
death of a dream.
I mean, there's so many ways.
Yeah.
That I have found is where people have the hardest time letting grief exist. When I go to talk about my mom, people are like, oh yeah, that's sad. I get it. Yeah. Other areas of my life, I think people will be like, well, you just need to get over that, or like, let's move you beyond that. And I think so that's a disservice to the people who are trying to just grieve. Like there's, sounds like you're in grief. Like sound like that's sad. That's painful. I hear you expressing a pain.
Yeah. And your life experience and your passion for this has led you to read a lot. You've read a lot about the process of healing and grieving and how your body retains the hurt from the past.
I don't even know enough, but yeah, your body does keep the score. It holds on to trauma. Like it will physically hold on to it if you don't allow it to move through you. And so
that's a great book. The Body Keeps the Score, right?
Yeah. Body Keeps the Score.
That's a good resource.
And then the other resource I would say, Dr. David Kessler's wonderful, Finding Meaning in It. And you've talked to me about that, and I've read a little bit of it. It's not that the tragic thing that happened or the painful thing that happened, it's not that you have to say that you have to celebrate it and say, oh, this means this. It's not that. It can just suck. It can just hurt and be hard. But what it's saying is that meaning can come out of it.
right? That you can repurpose
Yes.
it, find meaning, find purpose. You can
Mm-hmm.
use it as fuel to do good,
Yep.
even if this itself was not good.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I think that was really powerful for me with his work was two things. One, the greatest pain is your own. So
because we're always comparing pain, right?
Yeah, there's a pain comparison that needs to die. So like if you say, I went through this experience, and then your friend, their nature, sometimes someone might say, yeah, well, I have so-and-so, they went through that and this. And then you're all of a sudden like, okay, so I shouldn't
feel sad.
I shouldn't feel sad then because so-and-so had it worse, or like you're always.
Like, my tears aren't justified because they went through something technically worse.
Well, there's always going to be someone who's going through something worse, and the greatest pain is your own.
The greatest pain is your own. You have no concept of that pain if you haven't experienced it. You can empathize, you can feel sorry for, but you only know what you're going through. The greatest pain is your own. That's a great line.
Yeah. And your kids, like if you look at your kids as they're going through COVID and the social distancing, they might be having a really hard time with something we might think is simple, but for them, that is the greatest pain that they know. And so it's important for us as parents to slow down, realize this is intense for them, and to allow those emotions to exist for them as well. The other thing that he said that was really profound for me was that a grief must be witnessed, and someone to kind of sit by you and witness your pain, not fix, but witness it. And so there's this like necessity for connection and community in grief. And no need to be fixed, just this is what I'm experiencing. These are the emotions that are coming out of me, and somebody to either repeat back or just sit with you. That's it. Super simple.
And I think that people mess that up, not because they're bad people. Everyone's well-meaning.
Oh, yeah.
But they're like nervous about trying to help or say the right thing.
We're all, we all do it. We want to fix it. We want to jump. We just want to, again, we're not comfortable with the emotion. So we want to help them move beyond it. But sometimes there's no need to. Sometimes it's just,
the body's healing itself.
Yeah.
It's moving through.
Yeah.
You're creating space for emotion to be in motion.
Yeah.
Right?
We went through a miscarriage this year, which was super painful. And I think about that. I went to one therapy appointment, and it was like the best therapy I'd had. And it was with Dr. Don, and Don just sat with me, and he just cried. Like he just kind of like held that space with me. And it felt like he just kind of repeated to me what I was experiencing. And I left lighter, and I found other people that did that with me as well. And slowly but surely, I kind of crawled out of the worst of that. But I'll never forget his face and his ability to sit and cry and lean in and feel the emotions with me that I was feeling. It was such a gift to my soul.
That's so good. And that's something that any of us can do.
Yeah.
Anyone can just be with and reflect back. I remember when I was doing some consulting with the YMCAs, and we were both going to the Y, one of their things was listen first.
Oh, listen first. Yeah.
One of their practices, principles. The YMCA in some parts of the country does a fantastic job.
Amazing.
Just has some great things going for them. This listen first thing was one of those. They train all of their staff to just kind of reflect as they listen. It's like, what I hear you saying is, now, did I get that right? Like it's caring more about the person than about what I need to say next.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Instead of trying to find, fix, identify, solve, help you move. It's just being with.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that the witnessing of someone's grief, sometimes maybe like if you can envision yourself, if you're helping someone navigate grief as a detective, because maybe they're just trying to figure out why they're in such deep. Sometimes when I can uncover the question to why am I feeling this anxiousness or this pain or this thing, then it almost dissipates. Like when you can name it, it like loses its power a little bit, depending on what the emotion is.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, naming it, identifying it. This is the thing.
Yeah.
This is what's happening here. Letting it be, acknowledging that it is.
Yep.
Maybe in some ways it brings clarity, but also confidence.
Yeah.
Like this isn't this big ambiguous thing that's going to ruin my life.
Yeah.
Here's what it is, and it sucks and it's painful, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I can deal with this if I'm real and honest about it. So then, how does grief fit in with forgiveness?
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Like there's a grieving that has to happen and we can feel sad. And sometimes the grief is not the family member, the loved one dying. Sometimes the grief is somebody else did something. Something happened to me that was terrible and can't be fixed.
Yeah.
And there's a grieving process that's part of that. And part of that grieving process, there needs to be a letting go, a releasing, a forgiving, it seems.
Yeah. I think grief and forgiveness can be messy best friends. Like there's
very messy.
Like there's, I think it's important to process grief and to sit with pain and to sit with the emotion and do the work of forgiveness. Almost like you have to separate the people from the emotion to some degree. Like if someone's hurt you, separate the person from the pain, focus on forgiving that person. Pain's still there. It's still going to exist, and allow that pain to be there. Don't pretend like it's not there. But then addressing the forgiveness with the person is really important. I have found in my life, while albeit it's challenging, to sit down and do the work of forgiveness with someone, it's actually, I think, easier than with a scenario where someone does not want forgiveness, or if there's like, for instance, a relationship that was troubled and the person passes away and there is no chance for forgiveness. There is no chance for reconciliation.
If you can't sit with the person because they're gone or they're unwilling or oblivious, then that can be more challenging.
Yeah. And I think we get stuck because what forgiveness, I think in my brain, I start to think that forgiveness is saying what you did is okay. And it's not saying that. It's saying you're forgiven. I'm releasing this. It's still going to come up. It's still going to be a pain, but you're still a child of God. And I still need to view you that way. And there is a lightness when you do that. There's a quote by Buddha that says, unforgiveness or anger is like picking up a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone. You're the only one that gets burned, right? Like you're just holding on to this like pain. They probably don't even know you're holding it. Maybe you throw it and you miss them. They don't even know. You just got this burned up hand now.
Burning your own hand.
Burning your own hand.
We all know that that's true.
So true.
We all know that that's true, that we put ourselves in this prison of unforgiveness. I talk about it sometimes in terms of like, I'm giving this person or these people real estate in my brain. I'm letting it live there. They're not thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. And I'm making it worse because I'm thinking about it.
Yes. There's been years where I've been tortured in my brain about scenarios, situations, things, and it's so frustrating. And I think a lot of it is because I associate forgiveness with it's okay. And that's not what it is.
Doesn't make it okay.
Doesn't make it okay. It just is releasing the person from your brain.
Yeah.
And I have a couple tricks. You want to hear them?
Yeah, give us the tricks.
Well, they're ways to help me forgive people.
Okay.
So the first one is I go young. I think of that person as a child, as my child. So I try and envision them as a kid, as one of my kids. How would I respond to them if they were a Jack, a Henry, or an Edie? Like if they were one of my kids, how would I respond? And at the end of the day, we are all just children of God.
Kids.
We're all kids.
We're all just kids whose skin is aging.
Yeah. Yes.
Unless you supply beauty counter, you are fighting off that aging
Thank you.
process. Clearly working for you.
So true. And then the other thing I do is I like to picture that person getting to heaven. Most of the time when someone dies, like people's advice to the grieving person, the griever, is they're in a better place. They're happy. They're dancing with Jesus. They're this, they're that. I think that is what it's like when you get to Jesus. I think when you get to heaven, Jesus is like, you made it, dude. I'm so glad you're here. Get in here. Like, I want to talk to you. I think the last thing on God's mind or Jesus's mind is like, listen,
I don't know. That
we
thing
gotta
you did.
talk about that thing you did to Hilary
You
back in
screwed some
8th
stuff
grade.
up. Yeah.
Like, I just don't think he's got a list of things to go over with us. He might, but in my mind,
No.
this joyful, like bubbly, like brain of mine, I envision him embracing all of us with so much love. And I don't even want him to bring up anything about me other than thank you for loving my daughter. But I don't think he's going to say, hey, we got to talk about this thing.
Yeah. You
And
really
that-
did Hilary wrong
Dirty.
back then.
No, I think he's like, get your butt in here. I got a room for you.
Yeah. You know, that's beautiful. And you know, one of the reasons why he doesn't ever have to bring it up is he's already worked it for good in your life.
Yeah.
Like the crappy freaking thing that happened
Yeah.
that you're not going to make good by forgiving. It's just crappy.
Yeah.
He's already working it for good.
Yeah.
Like God's already bringing meaning from it.
Yeah.
He's doing good with that tragic thing.
Yeah.
And so down here, if you brought it back up when you're like, oh wait, I'm actually like even grateful for that. Like that turned into such a blessing.
Yeah. I think a lot of the sin or like consequences, or we have to like own it, whatever that is, and have, I think that like heaven is kind of like here too. There's that mysterious veil. I just kind of feel like our consequence actually probably is on this side of heaven.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're experiencing every choice has built into it a consequence, a natural consequence. God's already wired the universe that way. Yeah. You make this decision. If I eat this healthy food, it's going to have a positive impact on my body. If I eat the Chick-fil-A I just ate, it's going to be not as negative as most fast food.
Mine was good.
But a little bit less good for me as a natural consequence of if I would have just had the shake. But they're built in. It's built in to the way God made us and the way God made this life. I totally agree with you. We think way too much about consequences and sin and hell and fire. And like you're living it now. You treat somebody crappy now, you're going to be treated crappy because you're going to develop that reputation, because you're going to end up lonely. I think about the people that have treated us not so good. They don't have a lot of people surrounding them. They've pushed away their people close to them. They're living with the consequences, even if they don't feel it, even if they don't come and apologize, even if that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. We can still forgive and set ourselves free.
Yeah. And I think much like grieving, I would say there's no need to put a timeline on grief. There's not like, oh, it's been a year, now you're done, or whatever. There's no need for timeline. Likewise with forgiveness. There is no need for, I already forgave you. I honestly think we have to forgive multiple times and sometimes for the rest of our lives. I think it's Matthew asks Jesus, how many times do I need to forgive a brother or sister that has hurt me? 7? Like, is that a good number?
That's a lot.
Feels like a lot.
Yeah.
And Jesus like tries times that by 70. And I'm sure, like, I don't know if Jesus meant like that person can hurt you 409 times. I think that was good math.
Wow. Okay.
I think I looked it up. I don't want to pretend like I knew that off the top of my head. Maybe it isn't even good math. I don't even know. But.
Look, let's just go with it. 400 something times.
For me, I think that verse in the Bible is for me to think I might have to forgive that same exact scenario 409 times. Like that same thing 409 times. It's because
it's going to pop up in my brain. Yeah, I'm going to have to release it again.
Yeah.
It's going to pop up in my brain. I'm going to have to forgive them again.
Remove the person from the situation. They're still children of God. I'm still a child of God, undeserving completely of the grace and the mercy that I've been given. Yeah. And move on with peace.
And sometimes there's people that are still in our lives that keep hurting us.
Yeah.
And there's obviously we need to figure out how to create boundaries. Boundaries, that's a whole other podcast that we can do, and we can talk about what healthy boundaries looks like. So we create healthy boundaries and keep people at an appropriate length if they're continuing to hurt us.
Yeah.
And we have to keep forgiving them not because they deserve it, but because we deserve to be free.
Yeah.
So whether it's 409 or 490 times that we...
Did you just figure that out?
Yeah, it took me a minute, but...
I sucked at math. I can't even help Jack, and he's in 2nd grade. It's fine.
But the point is, we just keep forgiving. And whether the person is still, has to be in our life as a, family member or a neighbor next door, and we don't want to move yet or whatever, and we keep forgiving, or we create the boundaries, fence, negotiate, love them.
By the way, we have great neighbors here.
We do have great neighbors. I'm not saying anything.
It's not. That's total hypothetical.
Yeah, we had great neighbors before too.
Yeah.
We're blessed with great neighbors.
Yeah.
Or if it's this really devastating offense that's back here and it just keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Right?
Release.
Keep releasing. Keep releasing. Keep releasing.
And it might take time. And there's no shame in that process taking longer than somebody else's. We're all wired differently. And that's so right. Give yourself grace when you're along that journey of grief, forgiveness, whatever it is. There's no need to put a timeline on it. Just keep doing the work. Don't avoid it, but push through it.
Yeah. Now, I want to jump back to something that we hit on earlier, and it's really important. And that is how we help ourselves in this process of grieving.
Yeah.
How we help the emotions continue to move through us. And you just casually mentioned 2 genius things.
Yeah.
And I know because I live with you that you've applied these things.
Yeah.
The first one that you talked about was moving your body.
Yeah.
That you get out and you move.
Huge healer for me in my life.
How? Go. Say more.
Yoga is a great spot that I think I've always kind of gone back to. But I tend to like running, hiking, something that is challenging enough that gets my cardio to a space where I am like challenged, and then my brain can kind of like, some of the thoughts can kind of settle out and I can get into a groove.
That's right.
I feel like not only is it benefiting my body, but I'm able to process my emotion a little bit more clear.
That's right.
And then the endorphins also help me process. So
yeah, it's like the shower, driving, and exercise. Your brain kind of drops into this more groove state.
Yours is in the shower?
It can be, yeah, sometimes. But exercise works for me too.
Exercise has been like, and not only that, I just feel a very close connection to God.
Especially because you're out in nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's helped you a lot.
Totally. And then creativity. I think those are the 2 that are always like co-creating with our Heavenly Father. So running, normally I'm out in nature, hiking, but creativity is co-creating with God. And I found, we went through a really painful season, and I had a 5-year-old, barely 5-year-old, barely 3-year-old, and not even 1-year-old, which I was already in the weeds as far as like capacity at that point, and then try to throw on like something traumatic that you're needing to process through and grieve. There was no space for that. So I tended to hit the claw and the glass of wine pretty hard.
The White Claw.
The White Claw. I made that popular, by the way. They owe me. This has been sponsored by White Claw.
Yeah, this episode brought to you by White Claw. Not because they're paying us, but because we paid you.
Paid them. Okay, so I recognized early on in the grieving, like I had to find ways to create space for myself to find healthier outlets for grieving, because like my runs weren't cutting it. I had so much to process. So I signed up for an art class, and I think I am a very artistic person, and I like expressing myself in that way.
For sure.
But that has been a unique way for me to express emotion and allow it to move through me, and to use my hands to create something is a really healthy way to process an emotion that's going through your body. Oftentimes I'll pray and I'll see a picture that God will give me, and I will try and recreate it in some capacity, and it's helpful.
And you're a genius with the lino cut.
Thank you.
Your lino cuts are legit, like world class.
I have fun doing it. I need more lessons. I tried to sign up for an art class and it got canceled because COVID.
Stupid COVID.
COVID.
All right, so actually, COVID has led to a lot of positive things too.
Oh, for sure.
Another podcast. But getting out, moving your body, doing something creative, because again, you're settling in, like you're focusing, you're going right brain.
Yep.
And your subconscious, you're expressing, like there's stuff that's coming out of you.
There's something, that book, The Body Holds the Score. There's something about switching. You're like physically have to switch over to the creative side of your brain to help heal some of the trauma that is stuck inside of your body. So that's
why that they have little kids do like
the
little Play-Doh,
play therapy?
play therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it forces your brain to switch over, and it does help heal. I don't know the whole methodology behind that, but that book was getting there. That book's great, but it's a little bit
it's dense.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It's a lot.
Clinical. That's the word. It's a little clinical, and so some of it can be redundant and like, oh, I don't know what. There's maps of the pictures of the brain, and you know me. I'm not gonna learn all about the amygdala and the frontal lobe.
But what you are going to learn about is how to help us make the most of this life, and how to let the joy.
How to get me back to the joy. I know. Got to get me back to that joy.
So as we wrap up, we're heading into the holiday season. This episode is going to be released in the month of November. And it's Thanksgiving, it's the rush towards Christmas, it's all the things. And people have a wide range of emotions, from the joy, from the Hilary kind of joy, to the grief and the sadness, maybe because someone's not around and Christmas reminds them of that. Or maybe because they have to be with family members who are still here that are difficult or whatever. How would you coach us? What would you suggest? How would you guide us into this holiday season as it relates to necessary grieving and maybe even forgiveness?
Yeah, I think the first thing, continue to move your body, do the things that are keeping you healthy and connected to God. Second, be creative. I think the best gift I've given myself as I navigate grief in the holidays is planning ahead and being intentional about my time. Like I said, my favorite thing is baking cookies. The minute my mixer turns on, I'm back in the kitchen with my mom, and it's a holy moment. It's special for me. I make sure that happens. There's a cookie day. There is a pedicure day because her birthday was on the 21st. And so I always go get a pedicure on that day. There's things that I intentionally, creatively plan in, and they're not going to be the same. You do have to be creative. Last year on my mom's birthday, I decided to surprise your parents with a brand new Christmas tree.
That's
remember?
right.
Amber and I went and got a Christmas tree because they were so sad. They didn't have one up. It had been a long holiday season, and we showed up with a Christmas tree on the 21st of December, and it was the best way to celebrate my mom. And I felt like being creative and doing something different helps me, not helped, past tense, but continually helps me process those emotions.
Well, you were not only creative, but you were thinking about someone else.
Totally.
You threw that
yourself.
Yeah. Get the focus off of self and onto blessing somebody else.
Yep.
You not only brought the tree, but you decorated the tree.
Oh, we didn't decorate it.
I think we brought Christmas alive in that house.
Definitely did. I wasn't going to let them go down without a tree. They needed it for the Christmas day. And then the last thing is forgiveness. I think always go into spaces where you know someone's going to be a challenge, prepping your mind and your heart and your soul. Take time to pause and reflect and think about that person as a child or as a person getting to heaven and seeing Jesus, and how would you then interact differently? And then be creative with that too. If you know you're going to be around someone who drives you nuts, maybe it's because they're always talking about politics. Maybe have a game with yourself, give yourself $1 for every time they mention something, and then you can go spend that money on a gift later, be creative with how you engage, because messy people are going to always exist. We're going to drive each other nuts, everybody. Yeah. So find ways to make it fun. Be creative with your frustration, anger, pain. Find ways to let it move through you.
Yeah. We're all just little kids trying to find our way home.
Oh, I love that sentence that you said. Who says it? We're all just trying to find a way to walk each other home.
Yeah. I don't know. I ripped it off from somewhere.
You ripped it.
Yeah. But we're all just trying to
walk each other home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I love walking with you.
I love walking with you.
And thank you for the wisdom. It's evident that you have processed, worked through, leaned into the difficulty and the pain, allowed the grief to move through you, allowed your joy, your love to win the day. And it's an inspiration. And I know that this was an encouragement to a lot of people. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I, for some reason, wanted to say sponsored by White Claw. But not really. No, I really did the work. That's not where the work is. That just was a buffer when I was in the weeds with kids.
Little buffer till you can get to the work.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.